started with a sharp word, then a shove, and within seconds my brother's fist came flying straight at my face. I didn't even see it coming. Just felt the snap of bone, the white-hot pain, and the metallic taste of blood flooding my mouth. I stumbled back, breath caught in my throat, my hands flying to my nose. It was broken. I knew it the moment I heard the crack. But what shook me even more than the hit was what happened after. Heart pounding, I lunged for the phone. I didn't care who I called. Someone had to help me. My hands were trembling, blood dripping on the buttons, but I was desperate. Then I heard footsteps. Fast, sharp, and suddenly the phone was ripped from my grip. My mom stood there, face cold, eyes unreadable. "Put that down. Don't start your drama again." Her voice was low, steady, and terrifying. I stared at her, stunned. My face throbbed, my vision blurred. But she just stood there like none of it mattered. Before I could even process that, I heard a voice from the living room, my dad, without even turning his head. "She's doing it again. Always making a scene." That's when it hit me. They weren't going to help me. They weren't even going to ask if I was okay. I stood in the middle of the hallway, blood pouring from my nose, and realized I was completely alone. But what happened after that, what I found out later that night, was far darker than I expected. Turns out the punch was only the beginning. And the truth waiting behind their silence? That's the part no one was ready for. Not even me. Growing up, things always looked fine from the outside. Neighbors waved. We smiled for pictures. We had birthday cakes, holiday dinners, and all the usual stuff that makes a family look normal. But behind those closed doors, everything felt off. Like we were walking on eggshells all the time, never sure when someone would snap. My brother had always had a short fuse, but lately something had changed. His outbursts were colder, sharper. And worse, everyone else acted like it was just part of who he was, like it was my job to stay out of his way. That night, as I sat alone in my room, tissue pressed to my bleeding nose, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. Not just the punch, but their faces. My mom didn't even flinch. My dad barely spoke. It was like they had rehearsed their reaction. Like they expected this to happen. That's when I started wondering, how many times had this happened before? And I just didn't see it? Or worse, how many times had they covered it up? I glanced at the door, half expecting someone to knock, to check on me. Nothing. Just silence. But not the peaceful kind. It was thick, tense, like the house was holding its breath. I grabbed my phone again, only to realize it was gone. She'd taken it. My only way to reach the outside world gone. Then something strange happened. I heard whispering. Quiet, hurried voices in the hallway, just outside my room. My name came up. Twice. I crept closer to the door, heart thudding so loud I was sure they could hear it. I leaned in, holding my breath. That's when I heard it, my mom's voice, low and tight. "She can't find out. Not yet." And suddenly I wasn't just scared. I was terrified. I froze by the door, trying to process what I just heard. She can't find out. Find out what? My nose throbbed, but now the pain was just background noise compared to the pounding in my chest. I pressed my ear closer, but the whispering stopped. Just silence again. And then soft footsteps walking away. I stepped back, heart racing, my thoughts spiraling. What were they hiding from me? Was this more than just my brother losing control? The way they reacted, so calm, almost practiced, it didn't feel like shock. Felt like routine. Like they'd done this before. Or worse, planned for it. That night I didn't sleep. I kept the door locked, every small creak of the house setting me on edge. Around 3 a.m., I heard someone try the doorknob. Just once. Then silence. I didn't move. I just stared at the ceiling, wide awake, stomach twisting. The next morning, everything was eerily normal. My mom was making breakfast like nothing had happened. My dad read the newspaper, sipping his tea. And my brother? He smirked at me from across the table like he hadn't just shattered my face the night before. Not a word about it.
No επάλεγει. No explanaschen.
I tried to ask questions, casual ones. Nothing too direct. Just to test the waters. But every time I brought up the night before, they shut me down. Changed the subject. My mom even said, "You must have hit yourself by accident." Like she was rewriting the story right in front of me. Gaslighting me into silence. But the more they tried to make me forget, the more I started remembering things I'd buried. Odd conversations, late-night arguments, locked drawers. And suddenly it hit me. Maybe I'd been missing something all along. Something that was never meant for me to know. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. One where everyone pretended nothing had happened, and I was expected to play along. But I couldn't. Not anymore. My brother kept his usual attitude, smug and untouchable, but I started watching him more closely. The way he lingered by my door. How he'd whisper to Mom when they thought I wasn't around. My dad stayed quiet, always in the background, but his silence now felt heavier. Like he was hiding more than just words. I started digging. Quietly. Late at night when the house finally went still, I'd sneak into the living room and check drawers, look behind photo frames, anything that might explain what they were so desperate to keep from me. And then one night I found something strange. An old notebook stuffed behind a loose board in the hallway cabinet. It wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone's I recognized. But inside there were dates. Notes. One entry read, "She's starting to ask questions. Be careful." That's when I knew. This had been going on longer than I thought. Maybe for years. I didn't know who wrote it, but I started noticing patterns. Times my brother would lash out, followed by sudden silence in the house. Days I wake up with foggy memories and vague headaches. The more I pieced together, the more it felt like a puzzle I wasn't meant to solve. Like they were trying to erase things before I could catch them. One night I saw my mom in the hallway, staring at my door. Just staring. Her hands were shaking. I held my breath listening. She whispered something too soft to hear and then walked away. That was the night I decided to stop being quiet. I was going to find out the truth no matter what. But I never expected what I'd uncover next. That same night, after Mom walked away from my door, I waited until the house was completely silent. I couldn't sleep. Not with everything circling in my mind. The notebook, the whispers, the way they all looked at me like I was the outsider in my own home. I needed answers. Real ones. I crept down the hallway, careful not to make a sound. I knew where I had to go, my brother's room. I'd never dared enter it before, not alone. But something told me whatever they were hiding, it started with him. His door creaked slightly as I pushed it open. The room was dark, but I could see enough. Trophies, shelves, clothes scattered like always. But something was off. His closet, usually messy, was shut tight, padlocked. My heart pounded. Why would he need a lock inside his own room? I found a thin metal pin from a drawer and worked at the lock with trembling hands. After several failed tries, it finally popped open. I pulled the door slowly, not knowing what I expected. But it definitely wasn't what I saw. Inside were boxes. Neatly stacked. Labeled with initials. Some weren't mine, but one was. My name. Scrawled in bold black marker across a sealed box shoved into the back corner. I dragged it out and opened the lid. Inside were things I thought I'd lost. Letters I never wrote. Drawings from when I was a kid. But the one thing that chilled me to the bone was a small voice recorder. Taped to the bottom. I clicked play, hands shaking. A voice came through. My own. Crying. Pleading. Please stop. I didn't mean to say anything. And then another voice. Low. Calm. You talk again and you'll regret it. That wasn't my brother's voice. It was my dad's. My breath caught in my throat as the recording ended. For a moment the room felt frozen, like time had stopped. I just sat there, clutching the recorder, heart racing, mind spinning. That voice. My dad's voice. Calm, threatening, like he'd done it before. Like I was never supposed to remember. But I did now. Everything started falling into place. The missing time. The unexplained bruises. The way everyone in the house moved like they were following a silent script. This wasn't just about one punch or one night. It was years of silence, of covering up something far more twisted than I ever imagined. I didn't wait. I stuffed the recorder into my pocket, grabbed the notebook too, and quietly made my way back to my room. I locked the door behind me, hands shaking as I backed into the corner. I needed to get out. But more than that, I needed someone to believe me. This time really believe me. At dawn I climbed out through the window. I didn't have a plan, just proof. I walked until my legs ached and found a nearby police station. I handed over everything, the recording, the notes, the story. At first, they looked at me with doubt, but once they heard that voice, their expressions changed. It moved fast after that. My dad was taken in. My mom tried to claim ignorance, but too much had come to light. And my brother, he finally broke. Turns out he'd been used too. Manipulated into staying silent. Into protecting the image of a family that was never real. I thought that was the end. But a week later I got a message. No name. Just a recording. It was my own voice again. Only this time I said something I don't remember ever saying. That's when I realized. Someone else had been recording me too. I sat on my bed, staring at the new recording that had been sent anonymously. My hands trembled as I hit play. It was me, no doubt, my voice, my tone, but the words didn't match anything I remembered saying. I was whispering something about keeping quiet and not ruining everything. It sounded like a warning, but not one I'd ever meant to give. That's when it hit me. There had been more to the manipulation than I thought. Not just physical silence, but mental. Something or someone had been controlling more than just what I said. Maybe even what I remembered. Over the next few weeks, I worked closely with investigators. The deeper they dug, the more secrets surfaced. It wasn't just me. There had been others, kids my parents had briefly taken in under the radar. No official records, no files. Just names scribbled on boxes. One of the detectives told me, this wasn't just a bad home. This was a system hidden behind fake smiles. As the truth came out, things slowly began to shift. My brother was placed in a program that helped him process everything. Turns out he had been scared too. Caught in the same web but too ashamed to speak. We weren't exactly close after everything, but for the first time we weren't enemies. Just survivors of the same silence. I moved in with a relative who knew nothing of what had happened until now. It was strange at first being believed, being safe. But slowly I started to heal. To find my voice again. What I learned through all of it is this. Sometimes the people closest to you can hide the darkest truths. But silence only protects them, not you. Speaking out was terrifying, but it was also the moment I finally took my life back. And I'll never let anyone silence me again.